This is Kim Meyer, host of Choose to Rise. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Madeline, host of Crowned and Dangerous here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you are done with this episode, I hope you'll come back to check out my show, Crowned and Dangerous, where Jessica and I talk about our time in the pageant world. A new show comes out bi-weekly on Thursdays. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Crowned and Dangerous. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hey everyone, welcome to Beauties Headcanons, where we're nerdy and you probably are too. I'm Elisabeth and I'm here today with Emily, and we're all here today with a special guest host, and that is Batman.
Hey everybody, Batman in Seattle here. My real name is Matt, but you can call me Batman if you like. I'm a cosplayer in the Great Pacific Northwest, and I cosplay the 1989 Michael Keaton Batman specifically. And I do a lot of charity work in the region. I'm a proud member of a group called Costumed Characters for Causes, and I'm on social media, Batman in Seattle, on Facebook and Instagram, and of course through Costume Characters for Causes at CC for Causes. That's the number 4 and Causes. I'm there as well, so I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. It's really good to have you. It was kind of funny. I came across Batman. I feel weird calling you by your name because I just know you as Batman. I took my kids to a library event because we live in the Seattle area, and he was Batman at the event, and we got a picture with him. And so now he's on the show. So it's super cool. We're really excited to get the chance to talk to you.
Well, it's my pleasure. Absolutely.
Wonderful. So, Elisabeth, you have a couple of questions. I guess we can get started with those, huh?
Yes. So this is like, when I was thinking of questions, this was like pretty much the number one question in my mind, because, you know, obviously I was going through your account before we were, set to record with you. I was being a little bit of a creeper.
Sure.
And of course, Michael Keaton's Batman is like one of my favorite renditions of Batman, like ever. He's definitely like my favorite live action version of Batman. And I was wondering, like, obviously I love this version, but what makes this version stand out to you? And what made you want to take on this one and cosplay it specifically?
It was a lot of fun. My family, in the summer of 1989, when Batmania was sweeping across everything, you didn't see. I mean, you just saw that Bat logo on everything. There was hats and T-shirts and bumper stickers and all kinds of stuff. And so we naturally, my family, I was 10 years old at the time, going on 11, and my family said, you know what, this is probably a big enough deal that we should see it, so we don't get left behind. If people want to talk at work about it or talk at school about it, we can say we've seen it. And like I said, I was 10 years old, and my experience with Batman was pretty limited at the time. I was familiar enough with the old Adam West TV show. I think it was on in reruns somewhere, and I'm sure I'd seen it. And I had a couple comic books at home that I carried around, like Linus carries his blanket around in Peanuts, as that kind of stuff. But the movie was one of those kind of big cultural things. Like, we felt we had to go see it. So we did. It was probably in few weeks after it came out, and so we went and saw it, and I was just blown away. I was just transported to this otherworldly kind of experience, and the fact that my whole family was there, that we could all enjoy it. And I remember specifically leaving the theater just pumped up from this movie, and all 4 of us talking about what was our favorite part, and that kind of stuff. And it really resonated with me. And of course, being 10 years old, I couldn't just, hey mom, let me go see the movie again. I'd have to get a ride. So I only saw it the one time that summer, but it stuck with me absolutely. So I was getting the I could say like a victim of the merchandising, because I wanted to get all the Batman stuff afterward. And
Sure.
go to I think Taco Bell had like the cups and stuff like that,
Oh,
and
sure.
my poor mom, my long suffering mom, where it's like, hey mom, I need to get more Batman stuff. She goes, you do not need more Batman stuff. But so it was that fall for Halloween. I thought, I'm gonna be Batman. I'm gonna do Batman. Mom, can you make me a costume? And she said, of course, I'm thinking, hey, you can crank one out, right? And she said, well, we'll see what we can do. So she put together a little cowl for me, and I remember we used McDonald's drinking straws and stuck them up for up in the ears. And if I
Nice.
tucked them behind my ears, then they'd stay upright. Otherwise, they'd flop over, and stuff like that. And like a black turtleneck and whatever black pants I had. And I remember we went to, it was probably the local Kmart at the time, and we found a really cheap vinyl Dracula cape that was red on the inside, black on the outside, had the big flip-up collar on it,
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, man, this is perfect. This vinyl cape is awesome. So we got that, and I thought we can modify that. It's like real early cosplayer,
Right.
mindset, let's modify. So I cut the big collar off, and we stuck some Velcro onto it, and I didn't care so much that the inside was red as long as the outside was cool, it was black. And so flash forward to the fifth grade Halloween party where I'm going to debut this Batman costume that my mom made for me, really cool. And I was putting on the cape, Velcroing it on, and the part that I had stuck the Velcro onto ripped off the rest of the cape
Oh no.
before I even had a chance to wear it.
Oh no!
I had worn it. I think the Halloween party must have been after Halloween because I wore the costume for trick or treating and stuff. So we must have had the Halloween party on the following Monday or something. But anyway, so the cape ripped and came off. So there's pictures of me at this Halloween party. I think I posted them online years ago. That I look so forlorn and so upset that my costume is not complete. I'm wearing this cowl and I've got the little bat emblem on and stuff, but the cape is nowhere to be found, and I was really upset. So the real early memories of that kind of Batman grimace that I have on my face all the time. That's where it started. So, but that didn't stop me from wanting to still dress up. So the next step was in 1992, Batman Returns coming out. So, all right, this is cool because all of a sudden, what was the big Batman, merchandising machine was cranked way up for the next movie. So McDonald's had all the cups and all the toys, and that's when my dad took me to a local costume and party store called Champion Party Supply, and they had the very first cowl that I got. The very first rubber costume cowl that I got, and so we got that. It was like $30, and it was a huge expenditure for me, but it was the coolest thing. And so I thought, well, I got the cowl, I can just wear a black turtleneck, and I got like the puff paint out and drew the armor on it and stuff, and I of course got a new cape because the other one was long gone, but. So that's really where it started. It all started as a Halloween costume it evolved from the first time to the next time, and then it kept evolving and it kept getting more and more stuff. So the short version of the story, which is long since passed, the short version is that it started as a Halloween costume and just kept going. I've never stopped dressing up as Batman. So
That's awesome.
You've always kept wanting to perfect it and do it just a little bit better each time.
Absolutely, and finding out where I can get the next pieces, or if I had to make pieces. And I mean, I remember thinking a little while ago that I start out with like brown gardening gloves. I thought, oh, these are good enough, and then you start getting like into the costume stuff. And of course, as Halloween costumes got better, then it was like, oh no, here's some motorcycle gloves I can make into Batman gloves and that kind of stuff. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I was also wondering, what is the best, or at least like your favorite experience that you've had while cosplaying?
It's tough to pick a favorite, but it's certainly things that happen over and over again is and it's kids and adults alike when they see it for the first time, and they're transported to either the world of make believe where Batman exists, or for some people, since it's the '89 Batman, it may be the first experience of Batman, like it was for me, where people see me and then all of a sudden they're transported to whatever that mental image is, and the big smile that gets on their face. And so that's always really gratifying that I'm nailing it, right? But I can't smile.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
But there are occasionally those times where little kids will see me and they're absolutely just terrified. They're just terrified, and of course their parent wants to pick them up and bring them over and say, "Oh, it's okay. Batman's nice. He's a good guy," and the kids just want anything to do with it.
Oh yeah, I was actually surprised that my son did not burst into tears when he saw you at first.
Yeah, it's always tough. You never know until you're right there, in the middle of it. So
yeah.
Actually, one of the greatest ones, I was doing an event last year in downtown Seattle, and there was a kid who's about a block away. He was crossing the street, and we were outside. There was a group of us, and this little kid saw me and pointed and said, "Hey, there's Batman." And he must have only been about 4 or 5. And so his dad picked him up, and so he was looking around, looking away from where I was. And so the dad came up, and he was about a foot away from me, and he said, "All right, here's Batman." And the kid turned around and screamed bloody murder.
Oh my goodness!
So terrified. He just wouldn't have any of it. Yeah, I was cool from a mile away, but up close, he was not going to have anything to do with it.
Oh wow! Like, I'm sorry, kid. It's just the costume.
And the funny, I feel bad, but it happens often enough. Like, well, there's another one. Can't win them all,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Batman is, sometimes a pretty scary, imposing character. So,
yeah,
it's a pretty reasonable reaction, I think, for some kids.
It is, and adults do it too. They'll I'm full of stories.
No, that's great.
But I was doing another event at Pike Place Market at Golden Age Collectibles, incidentally, where I've been going there since I was a little kid. So I got some of the original '89 Batman stuff at this store, and so it's really nice to have made a relationship with them that I could be Batman at their store. But
that is cool.
So I was at Batman Day, one of the, I think, first or second Batman Day things at their store, and they have out front of their doors, they've got all these cardboard cutouts, of different characters.
Oh yeah.
And so I'll just kind of park myself right there and stand there with all these other characters.
Oh,
and this group of people, all adults, was walking by, and most of them didn't pay any attention to me. They just walked by me like I was a figurine standing there. And this woman kind of did a double take, and she looked at me, and I didn't move and I didn't turn or anything, but I just shifted my eyes from what I was looking at over to her. And she screamed just like that kid did. She screamed so loud. Of course, as soon as she realized that she was screaming, she laughed, and
of course.
But it was so funny because all I did was move my eyes, and then, "Oh my God, you're real!"
Oh, that's great.
That kind of stuff. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
I was also curious. Are there any events that you haven't attended or haven't gone to, any cons or anything like that you haven't gotten a chance to go to, but you'd like to in the future?
Not any specific events, but something that I am very interested in and hoping to in 2019 is to essentially take Batman in Seattle on the road. I've done everything kind of in the local scene. I've done the comic stores and comic conventions certainly, but what I'd like to do is I've networked with such delightful people all around the country, and who do their own cosplay and their own cosplay charity work, that I'd love to take Batman and do events with them. So there's a group in Michigan called the Cosplay Crusaders, and they're really active and just an awesome group of people. And I thought, it'd be really great if I could bring Batman to one of their events, for example, and certainly I've got friends that are all over the country and actually internationally for that matter, and it'd be really fun just to check off the list, to visit these other events in other places.
That's awesome. We'll have to keep a close eye on your social media, see
Yeah.
if you get a chance to go. That would be so awesome to see you like traveling and doing all kinds of stuff with your Keaton Batman.
That'd be
Absolutely.
really cool. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I just have one last question for me personally, and it's kind of a little bit more of a casual question, and that was whether movies, cartoons, your choice. Who is your favorite Joker and why?
That's a fantastic question because they're all so different. That they can all fit. Everybody who's portrayed the Joker has had such a unique take on it that you can't really say these are all apples to apples. It's all, it's like apples to blenders. I mean, it's just there's so much different stuff.
That's true, though.
Um, but other than Jack Nicholson being, my first experience of a live action Joker, I was more familiar. Even as a kid, I was more familiar with the way he was drawn and from the pages of the comic. So it was kind of interesting that I didn't really have that much of an opinion about Batman, but I certainly knew kind of what my perception of the Joker was going to that movie. And I think with that in mind, when the Batman animated series came out and Mark Hamill's voice was that just clinched it. That was that's the voice that I've been hearing in the comic books all these years.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I think that was if you want to throw around the word definitive, which is it's always kind of touchy, but I really think that animated series Joker is probably the definitive version still. And it's always fun to go back and it took me years to realize, wait a minute, Mark Hamill, is that the same guy that was in Star Wars? That's crazy.
Right.
Doesn't sound like him at all. He's just
That's
transported
crazy.
to this other world where his voice is perfect.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That's kind of was the case for me because Batman the Animated Series was my first like real serious interaction with Batman.
Mm-hmm.
I had very strict upbringing, and so when it was doing when they were doing the reruns on Cartoon Network in the late '90s, that's when I finally got a chance to watch them,
Mm-hmm.
and it was at that point where I was like, oh yes, like this, I like this,
Yeah.
and of course I didn't know at the time that was Mark Hamill, but nowadays when I go back and I read the comics, it's his voice in my head
Yeah,
that
exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So awesome. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I've got a couple questions for you as well. One of them coming from our other co-host, Lindsay. Sadly, she couldn't make it tonight, but she wanted to pass along this question.
Sure.
She wants to know, how do you get into cosplaying at places like libraries and other public places? And I guess to go along with that, how do you get associated with your charity group?
It was all for me. It was all kind of coincidence and happenstantial. Because, like I said, I started out in the costume thing with Halloween costumes. It was like once a year I had to perfect the costume, and I wore it for Halloween, and then that was it until the next Halloween. And then when the Comic-Con scene was taking off, late what we say, late aughts, the late 2000 before 2010.
Oh, yeah.
Where things are kind of taking off, and you can wear a costume when it's not Halloween. Cool.
Yeah.
I love being, playing adult dress up, So when that started happening, it was just kind of a whim that I thought, you know what, I think I'll go to Emerald City Comic Con and do a day, and I'll wear my Batman Halloween costume and just see what it's like. And from the moment I walked into the con, here's a bunch of people, kind of a like-minded fandom where you say, oh, here's a guy in a Batman suit. Cool, I'll go say hi to him. And that kind of introduced me into, an already existing kind of cosplay community that was just forming. And so through people I met at the con, all of a sudden it was like, oh, here's more people that they know. And then, oh, I'm involved with this group. And then, my first Emerald City Comic Con was in 2010. 2012.
Okay.
And that fall, I was already volunteering with the group I'm still part of now. That actually I'm a director of now. So,
Oh, wow.
it was just kind of one of those things where it was just the network that just grew on its own. You know, you just a matter of going and finding people that were like you. You know, so it was. And for anybody who wants to get started in it now, that's really social media has kind of changed that whole thing too, where you can find your favorite cosplayers online and find out where they're going to be or find out what groups they're involved with, because so many cosplayers, especially ones that I've networked with, are passionate about their charity work. You know, they don't want to necessarily just dress up for the sake of dressing up. They want to have it mean something or do something.
That's awesome.
And so that, you know, that can really get you motivated. It's like, why do I do this? Oh, it's because I get to see kids smile, or, you know, remind their parents of what it was like to be a kid, or anything like that. So
that is really, really cool.
All
That's
about
awesome.
Nerd culture just develops so organically, you know, especially before like certain aspects of social media really kind of took off.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I think social media almost kind of showed the nerds that they're not all alone.
Exactly.
You know, like, because now it seems like there's nerds everywhere, but I feel like they were everywhere before. We just didn't know about them.
Yeah, we just assumed that you were kind of a loner, and yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
The community has really grown from that kind of like-mindedness. You know, that or the same experiences up to that point. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, a second part of Lindsay's question. And we kind of touched on this. She wanted to know, how do you pick a character as loved as Batman, especially when Batman as a character is such a jaded character?
That was one of the interesting things, even as a kid, thinking about how this kind of psychological story was being told as well. That, you know, the dark past that Bruce Wayne has to deal with, and why it made him put the costume on, and in that movie especially, they didn't really get into the real world scenario of why would he do this. It was more of this is why he does it, and he just kind of accepted that as it was. You know, this is why he does it, and that's good enough. You know, you didn't have to explain, how he made his suit, or, how he got his training. It was just kind of understood that he put the time in and did it himself, and that was all there was to it. But because it was presented as such an interesting kind of character study, I think that's why it resonates with so many people. It's not, as beloved as Superman is, I think everybody kind of has this perception of Superman that what you see is what you get, and you're not going to find. I was just talking with a friend of mine the other day, as a matter of fact, that there aren't a lot of Superman cosplayers, at least in this region, that you run into, and I think that might be why. I mean, Superman is Superman, and I think people like doing cosplay that's challenging, or cosplay that's not quite as middle of the road, so to speak. And I love Superman. I'm a huge Superman fan, and if I were to cosplay anything else, it'd probably be Christopher Reeve's Superman. But
nice.
But it's one of those things that, like, you kind of identify with the character that you're going to cosplay, and or at least sympathize, and you can kind of understand where they're coming from and why they have the motivations they do.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So kind of leading off of that, then, this is one of my questions. What is your advice for those who might want to start cosplaying? Because, like, I know some people go to a bunch of conventions and they basically are a different character every con they go to.
Yeah.
But I know you always are the same guy, right? You're
Correct.
Always Michael Keaton Batman.
Yep, I always am.
And that's awesome.
And one of the reasons behind that is, even if it looks the same from time to, from event to event, I'm always doing something. I'm always doing some sort of adjustment, or I've come up with new pieces or parts of the costume that are different, or I've modified it, or that it fits better or works better, or parts have worn out and I've replaced, and that kind of stuff. So I'm always working on it. So it's almost as if I'm doing a new cosplay every time, it seems like, but it always looks the same. But
but to you, it's like you're like honing your craft kind of
exactly thing. Yeah, and it keeps getting better, and I always say, man, this looks awesome, but I'd sure like to do XYZ, and so it never stops, which is why people always say, why don't you cosplay anything else? I say, I don't think I could ever convince myself I'm finished with this one to the point where I could start on something brand new.
Gotcha.
But certainly, I don't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. I guess like for people who want to get into it when they attend conventions or anything like that, do you have any tips for like making their first costume or anything like that?
Absolutely, and it doesn't matter so much how old I was, but starting out the way I did is still valid, and that's, I think people have a perception. There's a certain group of people anyway that have a perception that cosplay has to be expensive or has to be, draining your life savings to get the perfect costume, and you really don't. You can really, if you want to dress up, the easiest way is to go to a secondhand store or what have you, and find stuff that resembles what you want it to look like. Achieve the look before you achieve the details.
Oh, that's a really good tip. Yeah.
And you can identify as your character and have people identify you as the character you want, and not have a lot of detail that needs to be there. So there's so oftentimes people say, I don't know if I can keep cosplaying, it's so expensive, and I say, it doesn't have to be, because it's a hobby, and you don't want your hobby to drain you. You want it to still make you happy, and that's why you do it. And so oftentimes you kind of lose sight of, this is my hobby, and I do it because I enjoy it, not because I hate myself, and and I like being broke or anything like that. But
right, exactly.
But starting out with bare minimum and building up from there, and I think the other part of that is not letting yourself kind of get consumed with, I got to get this costume done by March, because if it's not done by March, then I failed. It's like, my Batman costume has evolved literally almost, over 30 years.
Yeah.
And for people to say, I need to have this costume done in a month and it has to be perfect. I was like, I don't think I could do that, let alone afford it, and if you start with bits and pieces that resemble what you want to look like, you can always change them later, evolve the costume. You don't have to have it be used once and thrown away. You can keep working on it and keep perfecting it, because the more you learn, the more fun it is as well.
Awesome. And now outside of Batman, you do have like a regular job.
I do, and it's so regular and so mundane that people ask what I do, and so I'm Batman. That's always the first answer, because an office job in a cubicle isn't quite as exciting. So
well, no, but like you do have like a life outside of Batman, I guess you could say. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Batman is only really one still small part of it. I put a lot of effort into the social media part and the charity stuff, and lining up events, but it's still only a small part of what I'd consider to be still a pretty full life. So
yeah,
and that keeps it from
awesome.
getting tiring or boring or anything too, where you can still look forward to doing it.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to ask one more thing.
Oh, I do have one question,
Yeah.
kind of spinning off of something you mentioned a little bit earlier. You said that you couldn't picture moving on to another cosplay because you can't imagine, like, perfecting and not, keep, working on the current Batman one that you are, working on,
Sure.
that have been working on for the last almost 30 years. If for whatever reason you ever got to that point where you're like, you know what, I don't think I can think of anything that I could do better, is there a character that you would maybe want to try to take a stab at?
I think I mentioned that the Christopher Reeve Superman is one of those things that I really loved as a kid too. I still do today, as a matter of fact. And the thing that I've gotten used to with Batman, another reason why I wouldn't be comfortable stepping into another cosplay is something like Superman. Is here's my face, here's what I look like.
Yeah.
And
That's a good point.
and Batman, for the years I've been doing it, I've always had my face covered. And so people kind of live and I kind of do that on my social media on purpose, that there's never any pictures of my real face, and there's never any way to kind of separate Batman from the regular guy. And
Yeah.
so that is kind of funny, because I'll get so many people saying, wow, you look exactly like Michael Keaton. And I'm thinking to myself, no, I really don't, but
just your chin.
but I get that a lot. It's like, hey, your chin is perfect, or you got the lips or whatever. And I say, yeah, I practice in the mirror all the time, but the fact of the matter is that no one really knows what I look like, to the point where if I'm not in costume at a con, and I'll see friends of mine or people that I know on social media or whatever, I'll see them and go up and say, "Hey guys, how's it going?" They're like, "Who's this guy? Who are you?" It's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Last time you saw me, I was in costume."
let me put my cowl back on.
Yeah,
here.
exactly. I have to cover like half my face and say, "Here, is
That's
that better?" So I think that might, to answer your question, I think Superman would be a lot of fun, and certainly a departure from the dark brooding, thing. But on the other hand, it would be a complete reveal of me, and that's kind of weird to think about, just because I'm so used to being hidden all the time.
Yeah. I remember my other question now. Have you ever done or have you ever considered doing cosplay competitions?
I stay away from them. As much as I work on the costume to get it just right and just the way that I want it to look, and that it's cool and impressive, I never want it to be about the competition or having it be perceived as better or more worthy or something than anybody else's. I try to make sure that if I'm happy with it, I'm happy with it, and if I can use it for whatever good I can for either charity or whatever appearances, then that's the most gratifying thing for me. If it sells, if I can sell the look and if I can work the suit, as Michael Keaton would say, then that's the most important thing. But there have been times where people are like, "Hey, you want to sign up for this costume contest?" I'm like, "No, not really. I really don't want to compete and have either be judged against somebody else or have somebody feel like that I'm stepping all over all the hard work they've done or whatever." And I can admit that as much as the costume that I've assembled, I really haven't made any of it. I haven't done any sculpting and casting of latex and urethane, and I've certainly worked on assembling it and engineering it so it's custom to me and that it works. But there are people that put in just thousands of man hours on costumes that I don't want to go up and say, "Hey, I got all this stuff from a network of talented artists, and you made your own, and I just won first place, and you got third." I just kind of want to stay away from that. So,
no, I think that's really awesome. Actually, rather than going for the prize, you just do it for your enjoyment of it.
Yeah, just the sheer enjoyment.
That's awesome. All right. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with the listeners?
Well, sure. I can certainly mention that I thought I was all done for events for the rest of the year, but I've been invited to one more, and that's this coming Saturday in Everett, and it's at BobaKhan Toys and Collectibles. They're having a Marvel and DC food drive. So it's from 1 to 5 at their store, and there'll be a group of us. There'll be Captain America and Wonder Woman and a host of other characters that I'm really happy to be a part of. And they'd like you to bring at least 2 cans of food to get in the door, because the whole point, of course, is the food drive. But Santa Claus will be there, and it's a great family-friendly event, as well as an awesome toy store. It's Nostalgia Central. You go in there, and every toy that you ever either wanted or had as a kid is in there, still in its package, and it just blows you away. So that's coming up on Saturday. So I want to make sure to mention that too.
Yeah, thanks. So that's the Everett, Washington.
Yes.
So the show is like basically worldwide if anybody listens from other countries.
Sure.
So yeah, if anybody listening is in the Everett area, go ahead and feel free to check it out and meet Batman among others. That'd be cool.
And I've been posting about it already on my Facebook and Instagram, but I'll keep posting, details about it. So there's a Facebook event that I've shared on my Facebook page that you can express interest in or find out more if you'd like to. So.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, thanks for getting nerdy with us today. We're super, super glad that you were able to join us on this show. So thanks for being here with us and answering our questions, Batman.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. We love it, listeners, when you guys talk nerdy to us. So if you have any other questions, feel free to shoot those over. Also, be sure to definitely check out Batman in Seattle. Check out his Instagram and Facebook. That he is really, really good about sharing stuff, at least a couple times a week, if not more.
Yep.
So check it out. It's great. And then also to remind you all, our website is now publichousemedia.org/beauties and headcanons with the hyphens in between. So check that out as well. We are no longer at thephmedia.com. And with that, I'm Emily.
And I'm Elisabeth.
And I'm Batman in Seattle.
Yes, you are. Thanks for getting nerdy with us today on Beauties and Headcanons.